The jaw is broken. Double fracture. 2 titanium plates. Teeth removed. Blood spilling from his mouth as he stands in the center of that ring, defeated, demolished, but somehow still smiling. And in the opposite corner, the man who just reminded the world why he was once feared across the entire heavyweight division, Anthony Joshua, the former 2-time unified champion, standing tall with his hand raised in victory. This wasn't just a fight. This was a statement. This was a reminder. This was the moment when the fairy tale crashed into brutal reality, when the YouTuber-turned-boxer learned that there are levels to this game, and Anthony Joshua operates on a completely different planet. What happened in Miami on December 19th wasn't just a knockout. It was a systematic breakdown, a soul-taking, a demonstration of what happens when you step into the ring with one of the most dangerous men to ever lace up gloves. And what Anthony Joshua said after delivering the devastating right hand that sent Jake Paul crumbling to the canvas. Those words are going to echo through the boxing world for a long, long time. You can feel the magnitude of this moment, can't you? The energy, the shock, the absolute brutality of what we just witnessed. This fight took place at the Cassia Center in Miami, Florida, streamed live on Netflix to millions around the world, and from the opening bell, you could sense something special was about to unfold. But it didn't happen the way most people expected. Oh no. This wasn't the first-round annihilation that everyone predicted. Joshua had told CBS Sports before the fight that not stopping Paul in the first round would be a failure, but sometimes the sweetest victories take a little bit of patience. Sometimes you have to break a man slowly, methodically, round by round, until there's nothing left. And that's exactly what Anthony Joshua did. Let's paint the picture. Let's take you back to that arena, to the electricity in the air, to the moment when these two men stood across from each other in the biggest mismatch in recent boxing history. Anthony Joshua weighed in at 243.4 pounds, a massive heavyweight, while Jake Paul came in at 216.6 pounds, creating a shocking 26.8-pound weight difference. The size advantage was undeniable. Joshua towered over Paul, 5 inches taller, broader, more powerful, more experienced. But Jake Paul, to his credit, had a game plan. He came to survive. He came to prove that he belonged in the ring with a legend. And for the first 2 rounds, he actually did just that. From the outset, Paul's strategy was obvious and smart. He ducked and weaved around the large ring, keeping his distance from Joshua's thunderous punches. The younger man moved laterally, used his footwork, threw the occasional overhand right, and tried desperately to stay out of range. And you know what? It worked. For a while. The first round came and went, and Jake Paul was still standing. The second round ticked by, and the predicted early knockout hadn't materialized. You could see the frustration building on Anthony Joshua's face. This wasn't supposed to be happening. He was supposed to walk through Paul like he wasn't even there. But boxing is unpredictable, and Paul's survival instincts were keeping him alive. But here's the thing about fighting a true heavyweight champion. You can run, you can move, you can do everything in your power to stay safe, but eventually, inevitably, the hammer is going to fall. And when Anthony Joshua finds you, when he closes the distance and puts his weight behind his punches, there's nowhere to hide. As the rounds wore on, Paul started to get tired, and Joshua was able to close the distance and start connecting with shots. You could see the shift happening in real time. Paul's legs weren't as fresh. His movement wasn't as crisp. And Joshua, the seasoned veteran, the man who has been in wars with the best fighters on the planet, could smell blood in the water. The fourth round is when things started to turn. The pair were warned in round 4 shortly after a right uppercut from Joshua on the inside troubled Paul. The referee, Chris Young, had seen enough of the clinching, the holding, the scrappy nature of the fight. He stepped in and told both men, the fans ain't paying to see this crap. And he was right. People didn't tune in to watch Jake Paul run around the ring. They came to see violence. They came to see Anthony Joshua do what he does best. Destroy. And then came round 5. This is where the fight truly began. This is where Joshua started to impose his will, where the tide turned from a competitive bout into an execution. Joshua landed with the uppercut early in round 5, and Paul was forced to hold onto the former champion before dropping to the canvas seeking respite. The wind was knocked out of Paul. You could see it in his eyes, in the way he grabbed onto Joshua, in the way he fell to the floor looking for any kind of break. The round wasn't over yet, but Paul was already in survival mode. His body was telling him to quit, but his heart, his pride, wouldn't let him. Paul also had his best moment in the fight in round 5, when he caught Joshua coming in with an overhand right. For just a second, for one brief moment, Jake Paul made Anthony Joshua respect his power. The punch landed clean, and Joshua felt it. But legends don't crumble from one punch. They absorb, they adjust, and they come back harder. And that's exactly what happened. Paul was knocked down for the first time late in the frame, and although a clean punch didn't land, an accumulation of shots looked to have forced him to take a knee. The referee had seen enough of Paul's trips to the canvas and wasn't willing to give him any more time to recover. The crowd was on their feet. You could feel the energy building, the anticipation growing. Everyone knew what was coming. Round 6 was going to be the end. And when that bell rang, when both fighters came out for what would be the final chapter of this story, you could see the determination in Anthony Joshua's eyes. This was it. Time to finish the job. Paul was knocked down again at the 2-minute mark after Joshua connected with another right hand. He was hurt. Badly hurt. His legs were gone. His defense was non-existent. And Anthony Joshua, the man who has knocked out some of the biggest names in heavyweight boxing, stepped forward to deliver the final blow. In the sixth round, Paul found himself backed into the corner, hands down and with his chin on a plate for Joshua. The Brit landed a powerful right hook which sent Paul crumbling to the canvas. The punch was devastating, absolutely crushing. Paul's head snapped back, his body went limp, and he collapsed to the mat like a puppet with its strings cut. The knockout happened at 1:31 of the sixth round. The referee didn't even need to count. It was over. Jake Paul was done. The medical team rushed into the ring as Paul lay there, broken and beaten, his jaw shattered in two places, blood pouring from his mouth. And in that moment, as the crowd erupted, as the realization set in that we had just witnessed one of the most brutal knockouts in recent memory, Anthony Joshua stood in the center of the ring, not celebrating wildly, not showboating, but simply standing there with the calm confidence of a man who knew exactly what he was capable of. This wasn't a surprise to him. This was always going to be the outcome. And now, finally, after 15 months away from the ring, after the devastating knockout loss to Daniel Dubois, after the doubts and the questions about whether he was finished, Anthony Joshua had sent a message to the entire boxing world. He's still here. He's still dangerous. And he's coming for everything. But before we dive into what Anthony Joshua said in that post-fight interview, before we break down the emotions and the call-outs and the future implications of this victory, I need to ask you something. If you're feeling this right now, if you're invested in this story, if you want to be part of this journey as we cover the biggest moments in combat sports, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Slam Zone if you haven't already, because this is more than just a channel. This is a family. We're here for every knockout, every upset, every moment that reminds us why we love the sport. Join us. Hit that notification bell. Because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Trust me on that. Now, let's talk about what Anthony Joshua said after this fight, because his words were just as powerful as that right hand that ended Jake Paul's night. During the post-fight interview, Joshua gave Paul credit as a real man, saying Paul got up time and time again and it takes a real man to do that. But Joshua wasn't fully satisfied with his performance. He admitted it wasn't his best showing, saying the end goal was to get Jake Paul, pin him down and hurt him. That has been the request leading up to the fight and that's what was on my mind. It took a bit longer than expected, but the right hand finally found the destination. Think about that for a second. Anthony Joshua, one of the most accomplished heavyweights of this generation, wasn't happy that it took him 6 rounds to knock out a YouTuber. That's the mindset of a champion. That's the mentality of someone who holds himself to the highest standards. He wanted to end it in the first round, to make a statement, to show the world that Jake Paul didn't belong in the same ring with him. And while he did eventually get the knockout, while he did break Paul's jaw and send him to the hospital, Joshua knew he could have done better. He knew he could have been more aggressive, more decisive, more dominant from the opening bell. But here's what makes this even more interesting. In the post-fight press conference, Joshua said, "Jake did well while it lasted. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw tonight, Jake has spirit. He has some heart. He tried his best, and I take my hat off to him because a lot of fighters haven't got in the ring with me, and Jake did." You can hear the respect in those words. Joshua isn't a trash talker. He's not the type to kick a man when he's down. He acknowledged that Jake Paul showed up, that he survived longer than most people expected, and that he had the courage to step into the ring with someone who could genuinely hurt him. And let's be real, that takes guts. Whether you love Jake Paul or hate him, whether you think he's good for boxing or ruining the sport, you have to respect the fact that he willingly stepped into the ring with a man who outweighed him by nearly 27 pounds and could knock him unconscious with a single punch. Joshua also said during his interview, "I need to give this guy a systematic breakdown. I know what type of fighter he is, and I said I'm going to take his soul, and I said I'm going to see it leaving his body round after round, and when the time comes, some people are just there to get knocked out." Those words are ice cold. That's the mindset of a destroyer, of a man who came to inflict pain and punishment. Joshua promised before the fight that he would take Paul's soul, and that's exactly what he did. He broke him down physically, mentally, and emotionally. By the 6th round, Jake Paul had nothing left. His body was battered, his spirit was crushed, and his jaw was literally broken in half. And speaking of that broken jaw, let's talk about the aftermath. After the fight, Paul posted on X saying jaw broken, heart and balls intact, time to rest, recover and return to cruiserweight. He also shared an X-ray of his double broken jaw and jokingly added, "Give me Canelo in 10 days. You have to give Jake Paul credit for keeping his sense of humor even in defeat. The man just had his face rearranged by one of the hardest punchers in boxing, and he's already talking about fighting one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. That's either confidence or delusion, but either way, it's entertaining." In his post-fight interview in the ring, Paul said, spitting blood from his mouth, "That was good. Nice little ass whooping from one of the best to ever do it. I love this, and you know what? I believe him." Jake Paul genuinely loves boxing. He loves the challenge, the competition, the spectacle of it all. He took a beating, he went to the hospital, he had surgery, and he's still talking about his next fight. Paul stated he wasn't demoralized and would continue his boxing career, saying, "I've already won in every single way in life. I'm going to come back and fight people my weight and go for the Cruiserweight World Championship at some point. I'm going to take a little break. I've been going hard for 6 years, so I'm going to take some time off." But this story isn't really about Jake Paul, is it? This is about Anthony Joshua. This is about a man who was written off, who was questioned, who lost to Daniel Dubois in devastating fashion 15 months ago and had to deal with people asking if he should retire. Joshua took more than a year away from the sport, saying he needed a reset, time to figure out what went wrong, and underwent elbow surgery earlier in the year. He made major changes in his life and joined Alexander Usyk's team, training out of the Ukrainian's base in Spain with Usyk's strength and conditioning coach and boxing coach. That takes humility. That takes self-awareness. To go and train with the man who beat you twice, to learn from his team, to completely reinvent your approach to the sport, that's what champions do when they want to get back to the top. And now, after this performance, after this knockout, Anthony Joshua has positioned himself for the biggest fight of his life. Joshua called out fellow former heavyweight champion Tyson Fury in his post-fight interview for a dream clash that would be among the biggest in boxing history. The knockout victory gives Joshua his first win in more than a year and sets him up for a potential all-British showdown with Tyson Fury, with the two having circled each other for years but a fight never coming to fruition. This is the fight the world wants to see. Two British giants, two former champions, two men with unfinished business. Joshua versus Fury would be massive, would generate hundreds of millions of dollars, and would finally answer the question that fans have been asking for years: who is the best British heavyweight of this generation? The post-fight interview wasn't just about Jake Paul, it was about the future. It was about Anthony Joshua reminding everyone that he's not done yet, that he still has the power to compete at the highest level, and that he's coming for Tyson Fury. You can feel the confidence returning to Joshua, the belief that he can become a three-time heavyweight champion. And after what we saw in Miami, after that brutal sixth-round knockout, who can doubt him? This victory means everything for Anthony Joshua's legacy. It's not just about beating Jake Paul. It's about showing up after a crushing defeat, putting in the work, making the changes, and proving to yourself and the world that you still have what it takes. That's the mark of a true champion. Not someone who never loses, but someone who loses, learns, and comes back stronger. Anthony Joshua did exactly that. He came back from 15 months of doubt and darkness, stepped into the ring against a much younger, fresher opponent who had all the confidence in the world, and he destroyed him. Systematically, brutally, completely. And if you're still watching, if you've made it this far with me on this journey through one of the most talked about fights of the year, then you're part of the Slamzone family. And I need you to do something for me right now. Share this video. Send it to your friends who love combat sports. Post it on your social media. Let's spread the word about what we just witnessed, about Anthony Joshua's incredible comeback, about the moment when reality crashed into the hype machine and reminded us all that real boxing will always triumph over celebrity spectacle. Comment below and tell me what you think. Did Anthony Joshua do enough to earn a fight with Tyson Fury? Is Jake Paul done after this brutal knockout, or will he come back? And most importantly, what did you think of Joshua's post-fight words? Was he too respectful to Paul, or did he strike the perfect balance between honesty and sportsmanship? I want to hear from you, because that's what this channel is all about. Community, discussion, passion for the sport we love. The future is bright for Anthony Joshua. At 36 years old, after all the wars, all the miles, all the doubts, he just proved that he's still one of the most dangerous men in the heavyweight division. The power is still there. The chin is still there. The heart is still there. And now, with Tyson Fury potentially on the horizon, we could be looking at the biggest heavyweight fight of 2026. Joshua versus Fury. Two legends. One ring. Everything on the line. Can you imagine the build-up? Can you imagine the fight itself? Can you imagine the moment when they finally settle this once and for all? But we can't get ahead of ourselves. First, we have to appreciate what just happened. We have to recognize that Anthony Joshua did something special in Miami. He silenced the doubters. He reminded us why we fell in love with him in the first place. And he delivered one of the most devastating knockouts of the year. That right hand that crumpled Jake Paul wasn't just a punch. It was a statement. It was a declaration. It was Anthony Joshua telling the world, I'm back, and I'm coming for everything. So as we close out this breakdown, as we reflect on the post-fight interview and the implications of this victory, remember this. Boxing is unpredictable. Boxing is brutal. Boxing is beautiful. And what we witnessed in Miami was all three of those things wrapped into one unforgettable night. Anthony Joshua proved he's still a force to be reckoned with. Jake Paul proved he has heart, even if he doesn't have the skill to compete at this level. And we, the fans, got to witness a moment that will be talked about for years to come. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being part of Slamzone. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and join the family for more breakdowns, more analysis, and more coverage of the biggest moments in combat sports. Because this is just the beginning. The best is yet to come. And when Anthony Joshua steps into the ring with Tyson Fury, when that massive fight finally happens, we'll be here to break it down together. Until next time, this is Slamzone, and remember, in boxing, anything can happen. But when a real champion steps into the ring, you better believe they're going to make a statement. And Anthony Joshua just made the loudest statement of his career.